Hello, ladies, and welcome to The Beauty Shaman. Today, I'm very excited that I have a very special guest whose makeup I did recently on a TV show. Her name is Marguerite Rigoglioso. I probably said that wrong, but I probably came pretty close. Rigoglioso.
You're an honorary Italian now.
Okay, I'm honorary Italian. Okay, Marguerite is the founding director of the Seven Sisters Mystery School and the scholar practitioner of the ancient Mediterranean mystery traditions. She has written The Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece and also Virgin Mother Goddess of Antiquity, pioneering books that explore women's shamanic abilities. So, of course, I call myself the beauty shaman, so I was all over this, right? So thank you, Marguerite, for coming on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a delight, Suzanne, to be with you.
So you sat in the makeup chair and we had such a great conversation. And I thought, oh my God, I love this woman. I love what you, your knowledge and what you bring to the world. It's such a gift. And I love your hair. I mean, the whole thing, I was like in love with your hair. So I'm so excited to talk about women and women's power and divine feminine power. Like, these are kind of misunderstood. And some of the viewers are going to go, yeah, I totally get that. And some people are going to think we're all like out to lunch here. So let's kind of tuck into what you do. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about what you do.
Okay, great. Yeah. And first of all, I want to thank you for the beautiful makeup job on that show. I was looking at myself thinking, oh my gosh, it's fantastic. I could not have been happier.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that. Well, you're easy to make up.
Whatever. And you gave me the makeup tips. I was really happy. Okay, so on to more serious topics. So, what it is that I do is I'm a spiritual teacher and mentor and writer about topics that have to do with mainly women's spiritual empowerment. So what I draw on is the ancient world and the evidence that we have from long ago that we used to worship goddesses, and some cultures still do and never lost it, or some cultures hid it in like the Virgin Mary and things like that. We used to be priestesses, and some cultures never lost it. They've continued their shamanic traditions, but a lot of what we see in the West, the Western world, and certainly, the United States, we've lost all these traditions. And when Christianity came over, it really hid or completely cut off women's spiritual power. And women got moved into this little tiny corner as nuns, and like I said, the goddess got reduced to the Virgin Mary, but she was still there. Now everybody's awakening to the Magdalene. All right. So, but the Christian churches have had a major influence of dampening down women's spiritual power throughout the entire world. And now we are at a critical time where this is emerging. So I've been doing a lot of scholarship, but then experiential teachings for people on how to access that information. And more importantly, for women to access their abilities to have downpours of knowledge directly from source, to bring it out to other people, to understand what it is to be a priestess, what it is to be a shaman, and how you can bring those gifts out into the world to help with the healing of humanity and the elevation of our consciousness. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And I do that through trainings, online and in-person courses, blogs, all the free videos that I do, many, many types of things, public events. So that's a little taste of what I've been doing through Seven Sisters Mystery School the past 7 years. But my work really goes back, getting my PhD and writing those books that you mentioned, and even before that. Okay, I've taught in academia and so forth.
That's wonderful. And I loved what you talked about with the ancient worship of goddesses and how it's been suppressed. And I really want to talk about that and go into that. And in particular, my own experience, I was very religious for about 15 years of my life. I was into fundamental Christianity, believe it or not. I have totally walked away from all of that. And tried to explore what does it mean to be a woman and feminine when I'm not in that particular paradigm, because you're minimized to such a huge degree. And one of the points of this, and I really want you to expand on this, is you were talking about direct knowing, how women can directly kind of become oracles, sort of like download this information, spiritual information where they can help people. And that is the opposite of what is taught in Christianity. Christianity is it teaches the opposite, which is more of a disempowering message of you have to do what you're told, or I was told over and over, the heart is deceitful above all things, and beyond cure, who can understand out of Proverbs. And I mean, I still got it memorized, 14:12, I think is the location of Proverbs 12. And it's just like this very disempowering. In other words, you don't have power. You need to be in the kitchen. You need to be quiet. You need to, you know what I mean? All these things. And so the shift really is more inward. So maybe you could kind of talk about this big shift that's happening and how it does kind of going back to history and how they did it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I was brought up Catholic, Italian girl from the Bronx, essentially. And at some point in my 20s, I did get involved in fundamentalism too. Fundamentalism. I was brought into what essentially was a fundamentalist cult in the Boston area. And it took me a number of months to realize that I was in a cult. Okay. And fundamentalism and cult can get very closely related because, not to go into the whole definition of a cult, but that whole system will definitely dampen down women and program people so that you have to go through either the priests of the group or some mediator, even the Christed master, in order to get to the divine, which is always male. Okay, so anything having to do with revelation, you can see that in some of the traditions like the Mormons are really totally based on a revelatory experience that these people were having. And the women were totally empowered at the beginning in the 1800s when this whole thing was getting started. That's kind of gone underground, right? But even in certain aspects of like the charismatic Christian movement, Pentecostal, and so forth, and depending on the cultural groups there, a lot of that is shamanic activity where they're speaking in tongues, or they're laying hands on people, or they're speaking prophecy, the whole Quakers even, that this was all really based on what is fundamental to human nature, which is to be in touch with our intuition and to be in touch with the divine messages coming through, right? This is really a natural part of our human apparatus. And it's all these programs and dampenings that come on to repress that. All right. So, but really, this is natural. So what I'm doing is I'm helping people get back to that natural state of direct knowing, where anything from your gut instinct to, telepathy, like I know that person's going to call, all the way to getting huge downpours of information like, wow, why do I know so much about that? Or I know this is true, or I was just shown a whole revelation about the Pleiades or something of that nature, or, what's really going on wherever it is. So there are ways that you can take off the veils that separate you and clear out your chakras and your channel and your crown to be able to access that information. And those are some of the tools that I have learned and that I have received directly and that I teach to other people right now, primarily to women. And it's basically a fairly simple thing based on a meditative practice that you do every day and every day and every day, running energy to be able to open, so that even when you're not in a meditation, all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I just got a downpour, or I'm in the shower. You're opening your vessel, your vehicle for that information once again. And this is really where it's at. This is what we need. We need to access that direct information so that it can also be a counter to all of the negative information, the repression, the programs that are coming on to us from the media about what is reality and what is possible. And, even down to our healing, that we have to trust doctors for our healing, which, much of the time we can do our own healing if we can access what we're being shown by spirit, so this is the beginnings of the answer to a question of what it is that I'm doing to help people access, and especially women, access their own information again.
So why now? Like, this has really just started in the last maybe 10 years. I mean, I hope I'm correct on that, where the Me Too movement taken hold, and all of a sudden, newspaper headlines are saying things like women, women in the driver's seat, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's great to be a woman, it's rough to be a dude. Like, even if I don't watch sitcoms, but on sitcoms, the men are sort of the guys who are failing and the women are running the shit, and it's just all of a sudden, like, the whole paradigm around what men do, what women do, who's really wearing the pants, and power is starting to really change. Why? Like, why is it all of a sudden happening?
Right. Because of what's called Kala Chakra timing, the grand turning of the universe into a new age. That's what's happening. And it's happening probably on every level of reality. We're experiencing it on the earth plane, but there's really a great cosmic turning where these goddesses and the feminine in general has gone through a huge dark night of the soul, being repressed, being raped, to the level of the divine goddesses that we hear all their mythological quote unquote stories. Those are talking about actual things that happened, all the way down to what happened to women on planet Earth. And we all incarnated in this time of the turning, the return of the feminine, the return of humanity to the feminine aspect of the divine, and with that the return of the power of women. It's going hand in hand, one and the other. And there are great cosmic cycles, and that's what we are a part of. And I think that on the soul level, many of us incarnated now because this was going to be the great time of this, from the 60s on.
Yeah.
We're in that window. It's going to continue on. And there's also no time to lose because of cosmic doings. And what we are told is what is happening in the inner dimensions, which is not all friendly, So humans have a real opportunity to work everything from the bottom up, whatever's happening in the divine realms. Okay, we're going to work it down here, because when we work it down here, it shifts everything on every level of the hologram, so to speak. Okay, meaning that everything's connected to everything else. So what we do here is affecting the entire domain of reality, and vice versa. So it's a really exciting time. Yeah, I mean, we've gotten a critical mass. I mean, we went from the 60s and the feminist movement into the feminist spiritual movement. And now finally with Me Too, we're throwing off the shackles of all of that energy and the negative entities that have been using the sex channels to repress women, and we're throwing that off. And we're getting into high places, and we're totally changing the game, because we're like, I don't even like that high place. I want to change how that high place even looks. I don't really want to work in corporate America, because the corporation is a compromised patriarchal structure that is fed, aided, and abetted by, curse-like beings. Okay. I want to have something else. I want to have a more matriarchal structure, like we did once have on planet Earth, where there's cooperation among the genders, and there's empowerment for women. So it's just all gaining momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's completely true. Now I want to bring up kind of in this part about I want to make it clear that it isn't, and I think you feel this way too. It's not like we're anti-men. Like, I think sometimes when we talk about the divine feminine, a lot of times people go into, oh well, then it's about putting down men, and it's totally not. So maybe you could talk to this.
Yeah, and this is so important. This is about cooperation across all the genders, and of course now what's happening people are insisting we don't just have two genders, something that, Native Americans, for example, knew from time immemorial. But now we're all starting to awaken, and this shift is happening. But the male-female dynamic is something that has had problems on the cosmic level, okay? And so now, though, with the reemergence of the feminine out after this dark night of the soul, there's just a rebalancing happening. So there's more energy and momentum given to the feminine having to come up and rise up so that we can come into balance, because the men are really not that thrilled either. Do you think they're happy with the chains of patriarchy and having to work, like horses? I mean, really, it's crazy. They're not happy. And, a lot of men don't benefit from or like the conditions and the programming that they get into. They want a more harmonious thing as well. So women in some ways have a little bit more freedom because we've been a tiny bit outside of that patriarchal system to begin with. And we're taking that freedom and saying, hey, let's do this together, and so we're calling men on the carpet where they need to be called on the carpet. We're calling ourselves on the carpet where we need to be called on the carpet, because there's been abuses on both sides, right? But we're saying, hey, let's work together. Let's have the goddess in connection with the God and the love that comes from that. Let's let that love feed all of us. That's what's happening. And so as women work through the anger phase and get to more of the empowerment phase, that's where we can have that largesse and just say, yes, we welcome our men, and men, what do you have to say? And they're like, wow, I'm so happy to put down the sword. I never liked it anyway. And yeah, what do we all have to say together? Yeah. That's what we're moving into.
Well, I think you're right. I think it doesn't work for anybody. And it's, and honestly, I think women do have more freedom than men. I think they're very shackled. And, now that all this information has come up about boys being sexually abused in the Catholic Church, and it's a huge, cover-ups, and oh my God. And I think, okay, it's not just women, and maybe this whole thing is going to help men as well be able to voice, their own pain and hurt, because men haven't been allowed to do that either. And I love the idea of femininity. I mean, maybe you could go into this a little bit too. I don't know how many viewers know this, but there's feminine energies, there's masculine energies. So a man can have a lot of feminine energy, and a woman can have a lot of masculine energy. The idea is we really just want, and what you had brought up is we really want to be balanced, and we want men to be able to cry and not be judged, or talk about their own sexual abuse, and then women to be able to do that as like we can already. We're allowed. I mean, thank goodness, right? But then also allowed to access our masculine energies and lead a company if we want to. So maybe talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, well, one time during a ceremony, because I go into these meditative ceremonies regularly to receive information, I was shown that it's important to detach feminine from yin and masculine from yang. Like, don't equate them.
Oh, interesting.
Just become aware that yin energy is what we have come to see as more feminine, because it's the receptivity, it's the softness, it's the nurturing. And then yang energy is something we've come to associate more with masculine, because it's more about the doing, the moving, the going, the energy, the activity. But they're saying those are really not connected to male or female. They're really not. And so you could have a high yin woman or a high yang woman, or a high yin male and a high yang male. And so once we start just talking about those principles of yin and yang, then we can say, wow, what percentage do I want to dial in to my yin and to my yang? And men can say the same thing. And then there's no shame in being inappropriate to your gender, because it's more about, which is a whole patriarchal program anyway. Absolutely. But it's more about readjusting the percentages of energy that you have in total or at any given time. Sometimes you might be like totally young, moving ahead. Sometimes you might be yin, like I'm moving into a more yin period of my life after being really young, getting Seven Sisters Mystery School for 7 years at the end of this year. My whole body, mind, spirit is saying, yin. I've got to move into that receptive, quiet zone,
Yeah.
in the coming
And,
years.
and I,
So,
yeah, this is great. I love you talking about this because I think the fact that we can choose the appropriate behavior for the moment as opposed to, well, you're a woman, so obviously you're just going to act like a victim, and you're the guy, so obviously you're going to be a jerk because men are so programmed. And I think if we stop and go, wait a minute, no, we can actually fit in the center. I mean, you can, like, I'm actually quite in the center with those things. Like I can kind of dance back and forth fairly easily, but I know people that are so in their feminine, they have to consciously go to their masculine, but that's okay. Like I think the fact that we can now make those choices and it's not so delineated, right? And that's what religion, that really was very hard for me. It was like, look, that you're a woman, therefore this is what you have to do. And I love this new kind of, not new idea, but like the openness to no, actually I can do many different things.
absolutely. And, the ancient religious idea of the sacred marriage, which goes all the way back into the ancient world and is in the Gnostic, like early Christian, when you really look at what that was, it's all about uniting left and right, above and below, masculine and feminine, yin and yang. And it's the sacred marriage within. And of course, that is really the basis of what people are calling the fifth dimensional consciousness movement, coming into unity consciousness within yourself, coming into that sacred marriage within yourself so that you are balanced, because that's how you start accessing even more of your divine energy. You have to be married within yourself. So we're seeing more of that within people, cross culturally. And that is the balancing that we have to have after this extreme polarization time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think there is a swing in the other direction. Like maybe there's some unfair, there could be unfairness because that tends to be what happens, right? Like everything sort of swings and then hopefully it comes to a center. So let's go into like what women can do now. And I know you work with women on such a great level to help them really tap into um, their priestess, their high priestess, their divine feminine. So I kind of want to go into that and talk about how maybe practicals or we don't have to get practical just yet. We will as we go along. But I want to talk about that because I think women are probably like, okay, what do I do? Like, how do I tap into this? Let's kind of talk about like moving forward with that.
Right. Well, I would say, Suzanne, the first thing is to every day have some time where you get quiet.
Mm.
And some people call it meditation. Some people call it breathing. Some people call it running energy. Some people call it whatever. I mean, I have a whole program where we have a running energy meditation up to an hour because I'm helping people to train as oracles. But even 15, 20 minutes, closing your eyes, getting quiet, calming, it takes 10 minutes for the body, mind, spirit system to calm down under any given day. And then another 10 to really get to connect with source, self. Okay. Just getting calm, quiet. And then at the end, like bringing your question into view for the divine, and seeing what you get is just the easiest way. It's a very yin type of thing. And it's so easy to not do it. But the more we get disciplined about carving a sacrosanct time and early, as close to, early in the morning as possible, as close to after waking as possible is the best because it sets the template for the whole day. But you can also use it to refresh at 5 o'clock or, when you get home early evening. The more you will start getting into attunement and alignment and with your path.
Yes. I'm a huge fan of meditation. And I don't know if we talked about this, but I've been meditating for every day for probably the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, I'd say. And it's taken many different shapes, but oh my gosh, that just having that time has become like, it becomes an addiction. Like I have to have that time. And I think, I'm a single parent and right now I'm running two businesses and I am so busy. I can't even, my head is spinning most of the time. And it'll all calm down as I kind of verge more into one business. But in any case, I bring this up because women are, I mean, we're in the rat race, right? We've got so much going on with kids and so many single parents and financial worries. I mean, life is can be very, very challenging. And I think meditation is such a giving yourself that gift, that time to just go inward and feel. And I think what I do, and many women probably do this, is I disconnect from how I feel because I go into my masculine when I'm working, because I'm working, right? And I'm around surrounded by men. I work in production, you know this. I mean, I become very masculine, and I just want to sit down and be feminine and just to be soft and feel. It's just such a powerful time.
It is, to get in the body. Yeah, we're in this transition time where women are starting to come into their power, their empowerment, moving into the cultural institutions and so forth, or becoming entrepreneurs as you are. And it can be like, oh my God, now I have to be the man and the woman. All right. So it's a very, very intense time as we're working that out. And it can be very stressful on the uterus to do that. And so because that's our creative center and our navel, those two chakras are production. The uterus is the creative. The third chakra is the driving. And people can get adrenal fatigue, right behind that chakra on the kidneys because of that, because we're pushing, because we're trying to have an impact in the world and be mothers and wives and so forth and so on, or partners, whatever. Okay. So it takes a lot of consciousness to say, I am not going to get pulled in and sucked in to that rat race, which usually is happening because of fear around money. Okay. So that's the other thing, the Babylonian money magic scheme that's got us all under control, running on the treadmill. Okay. Faster and faster and faster. So we have to really set some boundaries, set some limits, agree to slow it down, and agree to trust in that slower pace, that's what spirit wants. Okay. Because for 6.5 years, I've been like a crazy woman getting the school going, looking at emails morning, noon, and night. At this point, I'm like, you know what? I am to the point where I don't even want to look at emails after 7:00 at night. And I really don't want to look at emails on the weekend. Like, it's simple little things like this. Decide when you're not going to look at emails. This is critical. When you're not going to look at Facebook, because we're all addicted and pulled into it. And that puts us way out of our bodies and our feelings. Okay. So little commitments to keep some space and to slow things down a bit is going to be really important to keep that body, mind, spirit health and the uterine health.
Well, I agree. And I love the idea of self-care. And you actually talk about this on your website. And I loved that, because when you go into, helping women access their femininity, their divine power, the oracle, the priestess, all these lovely things that are just so empowering for women, you do have to slow it down, and you do have to tune in, and you have to listen to your body and then take care of your body. And that's the opposite of what the world is telling us, right? And so it takes so much strength to set those boundaries and figure out, what do I really need, right?
Absolutely. And really work in harmony with spirit energetically to draw and attract the money to you, so that you're not just pushing through your third chakra to get the money to come to you, so that you can take more of that space and that slowness. So it's working with spirit. I mean, I always have people create an altar to Lakshmi and Ganesha, the two Indian Hindu gods that you can put in the abundance corner of your apartment with a candle, a little tea candle every day, and say, I want to get to know you. Ganesha, please remove obstacles to my abundance, and Lakshmi, please bring me the abundance in. The minute I started that's when I started Seven Sisters Mystery School 7 years ago. My whole life changed working with divinity on that level. And there have been periods where I totally forget about them, or I have the altar and I'm like lighting the candle by rote, but I'm not really feeling it. So we can call on those deities, which are totally benevolent deities for humanity, or anyone else that you're calling on. Maybe it's the Christed Master, maybe it's the Blessed Mother, maybe it's Kuan Yin, maybe it's Fortuna from the ancient Roman, pantheon. Work with spirit to help you have what you need so that you can have a more harmoniously paced life for yourself. Use that as a resource.
That's lovely, and I think that gives women in the audience some practicals too. And it's interesting, as you said, that I have a statue of Lakshmi that's probably a foot. She's a foot and a half tall, sitting here in the corner, and a Ganesh over here in the other corner. And I thought, well, I look at them every day, but I've never asked that. Actually anything.
Ask them, and they love little offerings of dried nuts or fruit, or yogurt or honey or chocolates or things like that. And every week I replenish the offerings, and I light a little tea candle every day, and I put the two of them together in various corners, and then I invested in a larger Ganesha. They're not cheap, but you can work up in the world. A more expensive one, as you're working with different amounts of money. Right. So this is just one little way. And this is not to be culturally appropriative of Hindu gods, but it's just to say there are pantheons of gods that are available to humanity, regardless of race, culture, or creed. And you can start developing an authentic relationship with them, call them into your life, work with them, and ask for their assistance.
I love this because this is, we're going to close out here, and I love this because it's something practical. And the meditation is practical. The taking time out for yourself is practical. Having maybe some sort of an altar that suits you is practical. Those are all really good things that women can do. Is there anything else that you can throw out there for women that would also maybe give them an insight into your some of your courses and classes that you teach?
Well, yes. Aside from, you can take a look at the many online self-paced classes that I have, because there's a lot there, and you can always have a session with me. It's the sevensistersmysteryschool.com site. But I would say on the practical level, earthing and foresting. Okay. So what is that? The Japanese are talking about foresting now, where you go to the forest and just lie down.
Oh my God. That's
Let
awesome.
the energy of the trees come into you on the ground. Okay. And earthing, where you put your feet on the ground every day, on the soil, and you walk like that. Okay. And just going out and being in a raw space of nature for an hour, the shore, the forest, the desert, the mountaintop, whatever it is, to shift your energy. You must get in touch with Gaia, and this connects us with the Fae, Fairy, Elemental realm as well, which is a whole other topic, and I do teach on that, and you and I were talking about that. I have an Awakening to Your Fairy Kin course. Like, what is this all about? This is not just myth and the stuff of fiction. Okay, this is like real beings on the other side who are also available to help us through the natural world. So, connecting, looking at the sky every day, like be sure to look 3 times a day up at the sky from your window. That will connect you. Like, these are, right? Hug a tree or sit at a tree. All of these things, very simple, practical things that will start shifting your energy, filling your well.
I love that. And I think, the well is just, it needs to be full because women are the nurturers, the givers, and, men can do that too, obviously. But I think men can do all of these exercises because they're so practical. And I think it's a relief for men to feel like, wow, I can actually go lie on the ground and cry. Like, it's just so rejuvenating to do things like this. So I love all those. Those are wonderful.
Yeah. So if you did just only those things, your life would start shifting, that we talked about. Your life would start shifting.
Yeah, that's great. And I love those kind of practicals. And I always like to leave the audience with some practical advice on what they can do. And also so that these they can go visit your website. I love that you gave the website name. I'll also put it in the, beneath here so people can see right when I'm saying that it'll show up. So, well, thank you so much for joining me, Marguerite, and for talking about this. It's such a deep subject. We have barely skimmed, we just barely hit the top of it. But I hope it's whet some women's appetite to look into this.
Yeah, we just send blessings all around. And thank you for having me. It's such a delight to be with you, Suzanne.
Thank you so much. So thank you, ladies, for joining us today on the Beauty Shaman. And for more information, please go to my website, which is thebeautyshaman.com, to the blog post associated with this interview, and you can get even more details about Marguerite. Thanks for watching.